thank you for members of the press to be here and those that are watching online. I'm St. Cloud Mayor Dave Kleis, and I have called the press conference here this morning for one main reason is to look at a charter change that I'm proposing for the city of St. Cloud. But also one thing I want to start with, and that is, I have been mayor of the city of St. Cloud. I was elected in 2005 at that time, and so and prior to that, 10 years in the Senate. And service has always been a big part of my life. In fact, when I was 17 years old, I raised my hand for the very first time to serve our country under the Delayed Enlistment Program of the United States Air Force. So I took that oath at 17. I did that again at the age of 30 when I became a state senator, and that was in January of 1995. And then, of course, when I became mayor in 2005. So it has been a service that has been the most important thing to me. And it's a service that, and as mayor, as a senator, and as a member of the United States military, I've always been the person that's leadership should always be about servant leadership. You served. It's not power, it's not rule, it's service. You're a public service, and that's servant, and that's an important thing. So in January of 2025, January 2025, I look forward to being able to raise my hand and to swear in a new mayor for the city of St. Cloud. I will not be seeking re-election this year. I believe in service, but I also believe that in every part of service, it's important to have new individuals lead. I have had the honor and the good fortune to be able to lead this city it'll be 20 years. It'll be my 20th year when I swear in a new mayor. And that service is important. I also believe, and I'm announcing this now, but I believe, first of all, campaigns are too long. It was designed specifically at our city and in our charter that you had filing. In fact, filing used to actually be much later. The state changed all that when it changed primaries, but filing used to be in August. And in fact, and then of course folks would run for office at that time. I think campaigns start too early now. It's all then about being in office rather than actually serving. And I think it's also important that I make this announcement now. I'd usually a little earlier than I normally do. In fact, the first time I ran for mayor in 2005, it was the last day of filing, 2 hours before filing closed. And actually, I made up my mind that day. I was encouraged by a number of folks to run. I did run, for those of you who may have been around in St. Cloud in 1989, I did run for mayor in 1989, college senior at that time. And many of you probably, if you were around that time, probably don't even remember I ran because I came in 8th out of 7 candidates that year. And that's a true story. I decided to run. I was, early 20s, and there was an opening. It was an open seat, and I thought I could be mayor, so I just, signed up to be mayor and ran. And fortunately for me, the citizens of St. Cloud realized it was not the time for me to become mayor. You're the CEO of a pretty large organization, and to come in and take the top job without really being part and involved in the community is really something that I think is lacking oftentimes. So I was, fortunately for me, I did think I was going to win, though. I had 750 lawn signs all over St. Cloud. 750 lawn signs. People thought, wow, I think I had the most. There were 8 candidates that signed up to run. One pulled out of the race 2 weeks before the election because there was some misinformation on his brochure, and he pulled out. But he also beat me. So that was where I come in the 7th or 8 out of 7 candidates. I had 750 lawn signs. I had 120 people at my campaign party, but I only received 96 votes. So it gives you an indication. A lot of people will tell you they're supporting you, and but the voters were right. to go into this job, the top job in the city. So what I did after that, I got really involved in the community, on a lot of boards and commissions, the American Cancer Society and service clubs, you know, a number of things, really involved. 5 years later, I was asked by a very dear friend of mine, and probably my most important mentor ever. She couldn't be here today, and that's Joanne Benson. She was a state senator. She suggested I run for the legislature because that's a board. You know, there you're not taking that top job. You're being part of the community. You learn a lot, and you really develop the skill and the ability. So I ran for the Senate and was fortunate. The voters elected me. I was sworn in as I said before, 1995, 30 at that time, one of the youngest members. I remember going to the Senate and meeting a young person, said, excuse me, the interns are downstairs in the basement. And I said, well, sorry, I was just elected state senator. So it was a humbling experience, but it was something that I had 10 years, 11 years actually, to learn a lot. And then was encouraged to run for mayor, something that I didn't seek. I think it's important. I tell this to young people all the time. If you know, they say, you know, how would I get to be where you're at? And I said, well, if you're running to be something, be mayor, you're running for the wrong reason. It's people who are looking at service, and that's an important piece. I was encouraged to run, and there are a lot of people in this community that are encouraged to run. I'm announcing now because I know a lot of people are looking at doing that. In fact, I've talked to at least 4 or 5 individuals that are going to be running for me, and I really think it's a great opportunity for them, and I think it's a great opportunity for the voters to make that determination as to who should lead this city. It's a unique city. It's a strong mayor system, one of only 4. I mentioned this at the State of the City that has our form of government: St. Cloud, Duluth, St. Paul, and Minneapolis just recently. So it's a charter that rules that, and that's one of the reasons I actually called this press conference today is the charter. I'm proposing an amendment to the Charter Commission, of course, and that is to change when we hold elections. You might be surprised when I said earlier I was elected for mayor in 2005. It was an odd year. That's the way elections were here for a number of years. I'm proposing that we go back to that odd year election so that it's focusing on the city elections. So when it's in a presidential year or in a statewide election, what happens is it clouds. It gives, you know, if you look at the at-large seats, this is an at-large election. The at-large seats in St. Cloud, which are elected entirely on the entire population, no candidate since this change has ever received more than 26% of the vote, which means 75% of the people in St. Cloud do not vote for members of the at-large council members, and the whole city has that opportunity to vote. Wards are divided into 4 sections, so you know that 75% don't vote for them. In fact, even more, because it's, you know, you got to get 50%. So the council representation under the system we have is just, and that's not because people are still voting, but they're voting for president, they're voting for governor, they're voting for Senate, Congress, state legislature, and the drop-off is significant. So there's not a focus on the city election. And the city election, the people who are elected at the city level are the most important people that you elect. Because these are the folks that when you get up in the morning and you turn on your water needs to come out of there. When you flush your toilet, you want to hope that it doesn't go directly to the Mississippi River. We take care of it pretty well. You want to make sure when you get out on the road that your roads are plowed in the winter and the potholes are filled. You want to make sure when you dial 911 that you can get a police officer, firefighter. You want to make sure that, you know, that you're eating at a restaurant, that the food has been, the kitchens have been inspected. You want to make sure the apartments you're living in, the home you're living in, that when you're building something, those things have been inspected. You want to make sure that when you pay your bills that, you know, it's not being, you know, some hacker hasn't taken all your information when you're working with the city. There's a lot of things. These are things that are directly affecting you. And to have 75% of the people not vote for the people who are making all these decisions is just really not what our system was set up in a democracy, in a representative situation in our city. So that's a charter change that I am advocating the Charter Commission look at, recommend, to put that back. I know why it was put on the even years. It was to save money. That was all of what I heard. It was going to save money. You'd have the election in the same year, the presidential. Saving money and losing our representation in democracy is not ever a good exchange. It is important who you elect. It is important who leads. It is important who who sits in the seats that are behind me. The other change I'm proposing is to eliminate the at-large seats and go to all wards. We have 7 members of the council, 4 representing 4 wards, 3 at-large. At-large seats, as I mentioned, not even under the practice in the year that we have, but even look at the previous years. They're not necessarily, in fact, this is what could happen. You could have a block where you would have 3 at-large people live on that block and a ward representative live on that block. 4 people could be elected in the same block in a city that represents a very vast area, 40 square miles of city. So if you do that, it hasn't happened, but it could happen. And in some areas, I learned this from some members. I talk to a lot of mayors around the country and some California folks. In fact, in California, there's actually having some lawsuits about at-large because of the exact things I just said, because of the representation. You could have a very large populated area that has all of the representation except for the 3 wards. But if you do 7 wards, you also have an opportunity to have a community that's more reflected. This elected body would be much more reflective of the community and the neighborhoods we have. I'll be launching this summer neighborhood best practices. By the way, I'm not running for re-election, but I'm going to be working really hard for the next 8 months. This does not change. I don't serve based on elections. I never have. That's why I always did announce my decision close to it. I serve because it's important to serve this community. I was elected for a purpose. I think it's important when you're elected to the purpose that you're in, you hold that, when folks go to the ballot and they vote for you, you need to make sure that you fulfill that term and you fulfill that commitment. So I'm not leaving early. I am fulfilling that commitment in that term, and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be doing what I do every year. You'll see me out door knocking this summer because I door knock every year. I don't just do it in an election year. I don't just show up at things in an election year. I'm there all the time, and that's the important thing about public service. So by switching to a ward system entirely, you have representation in all parts of the city, which is extremely important in my opinion. This is my opinion. Charter Commission will make that decision, and ultimately it'll either be the council or the voters that will make that decision. Changing the ward system from at-large to ward system cannot be done until after a census, because wards can only be done once in that decade, so after the census. But the Charter Commission can make that change going forward. Changing to odd-year elections could take place this year, and I would recommend that it does, but that's not my decision. That's the Charter Commission's decision, and ultimately the council or the voters' decision to make. But I have a number of folks that are in the room here that I asked and had a chance to talk to, and that's the leadership of this city. I have had the honor and really a privilege to be able to appoint and hire the positions that they're in. Some were hired prior to me because they've been working for the city for longer than I've been serving here. And they have, I've had that honor and be able to assemble a team, the leaders that are sitting in that row, in that back row. And again, it's just even fitting they're sitting in the back row because they're always in the back doing all the things and leading the city. But these individuals here are the best of the best. I tell you, the team that's been assembled here is second to none in this, and I'm not saying that because I'm mayor. I'm saying that because I'm retiring, and I can also tell you, I mean it, there's not an individual in here that couldn't be somewhere else in some other city, probably making a lot more money because they know how fiscally conservative I am. But they're here because of service. They're dedicated public services. When I talk about service, that should always be the goal. They're not here, for the role that they lead. They're here for the service that they provide. And I am so proud to serve with them. I love the city, and one of the things that has made it a more difficult decision than anything else was to leave this team. This team is amazing, and you as a member of the community, all those folks listening, you are served very well by the people who serve this city. So with that, I will open it up to questions.